Good evening and welcome to a special edition of To The Point. This evening we'll be discussing the 13th Munich Security Conference core group, which was wrapped up yesterday. A number of pressing issues were addressed in the conference, mostly terrorism, illegal migration, climate change, cyber security, and so many other issues, including pressing issues here in this region. We have a lot of boiling points: the Palestinian question, the situation in Libya, the situation in Syria, the situation in Lebanon, Sudan, and so forth and so on. We're very honored to have with us this evening a very distinguished gentleman, a gentleman that has served his country in numerous capacities. Suffice it to say, in one of Egypt's prideful victories, the 1973 war, worth noting, he was the first Egyptian to cross the canal. With us this evening is distinguished war veteran Major General Hussein Abdel. It's an honor, of course, to have you with us this evening.
Nice to be with you.
When I pose those questions to a political analyst or an activist or to an ambassador even, maybe the way I would address the questions would be completely different, because here I'm addressing a person that was right there in the battlefield holding a gun, and at the same time you served in a peacekeeping corps, so to speak, in your capacity in the United Nations. How do you see issues on the ground today? We have very, very pressing issues. When I talk to a distinguished war veteran and a distinguished member of the peacekeeping force, so to speak, something like terrorism, because it's a phenomenon not restricted only to our part of the world. It's unfortunately an international phenomenon. We've been talking numerously about terrorism, the effects of terrorism, how we have to confront terrorism, stand up to countries and organizations that sponsor terrorism. And unfortunately, the world has not come to any collective agreement, even into labeling who should be considered as a terrorist organization. How do you see this? And I know you're wearing two hats here. How do you see us approaching that issue?
As a matter of fact, I see it as a natural thing in our life, because life is two scales, good and bad, and you have to deal with things in a practical way. We are not dealing with terrorism as something special to us, but as a phenomenon, and we ask the entire world to be in one hand, because we, out of our experience, know very well that this phenomenon is very dangerous, not only on Egypt, but on the region, on the entire world. And we have our vision, we have our policy, we have our strategy a long time ago to deal with this phenomenon. And we send a lot of message, to the world, to the international organization, to give much care to deal with this phenomena, to eliminate it, because it affects, very deeply the development, the normal life of the people everywhere. And it has its impact on economy, on social life, on many things. So this is the challenge we are facing, not as Egypt, because we have a special, we have a special position here because of the latest events, but we succeeded. We have now our experiment, we have our vision, to deter terrorism, to deal with it, and I'll take you and the audience to 2014, When the terrorists, were marching in Berid and Sinai, raising the banners, shooting fire in the air, and they imposed their own law,
Yes.
at the expense of the state law. And now the picture is completely different because we faced this phenomena in Egypt decisively, since the revolution of the 30th of June. And we determined to deal with it strongly, decisively, and to eliminate it, and not allow this phenomena to be spread out in Egypt. And we send the message to the world in many conferences that the president attend outside or any international organization.
Yes.
And he gave a lot of speeches, in this regard, warning the people. We have to maintain our security. And if we are serious in this, we have to eliminate this phenomena because it affects our desire, the people's desire to move forward, to make their normal life, to live in peace. So, unfortunately, the people, the outside doesn't listen carefully and doesn't and don't give much care to this warning.
Why?
And
Why? Is it because terrorism doesn't have any boundaries? I mean, Europe suffered, the United States suffered, Africa suffered, the Middle East suffered.
But not much. But not much as we suffered, we suffered severely, and we've been affected very profoundly.
Yes.
But in France, for example, one terrorism action here or there, it doesn't give any sense of fears, to the French. And the same thing on the British, the same thing on the German.
Yes.
These things happen today and tomorrow, another day.
Yes.
But here we deal with the such things, emotionally, because we lost many of our men, soldiers, officers, and also it affects our national activities, like
yes. The day-to-day economy as well. Yes,
for example,
definitely.
And we made a tremendous success, and one can say and we're very brave, in dealing with this phenomena. And I was in Sinai for some times. I realized that the morale of our people, our soldiers there is very high, and the losses, that happen among them doesn't affect their morale, and their determination to deal with this phenomena strongly and decisively is very, really touched.
How is the morale different? I don't want to go into that, but you're raising issues and that's sort of pushing me into that. How is the morale different from when you were a soldier in the field? How do you see this morale in any shape or format different, so to speak? In other words, you were out there in the field. There are battles in which we were victorious. There are battles in which we were defeated, which is normal. How do you see this morale today? Because really, you're fighting an enemy, not only outside, but unfortunately sometimes even from within. How do you see this, this feeling for a soldier to stand there and know that you can be shot from someone behind the enemy line or right behind you, within your own land?
Once you realize that you are facing an enemy, whether it is material enemy like Israel or any other, or turn to groups, the same things, because you are dealing with a man or men seeking for one purpose, to kill you, and to hold a part of our territory. So the enemy is the same. A man like want to kill you, and you have to defend of yourself first, and for your unity and your country. So you have the same feeling, I think, the same feeling. Once you are in the battlefield, you have the same feeling. And we have, one can say, a training system, you know, to raise the morale as we making a lot of efforts to maintain the efficiency of the soldiers in fighting, in tacticking, you know, in cooperating.
Yes.
So we gave much care to the morale. We used to instruct them. We used to explain to them. We used to assure that their morale and their determination is very high, and they are capable to do the mission, you know, entrusted to them.
Yes.
So your question may come from the civilian. You know, I can understand that. But I am as a soldier.
Yes, definitely,
yeah,
it's different.
I'm quite sure that once you are in the battlefield, that means you have been prepared, you know, to go there.
Yes.
And to stand there and to fight there. The matter of being killed or being a martyr, you know, it is not a big deal for you, because you are not alone. You have a lot of people around you, a lot of your friends, your soldiers, you know, your officer, your
and you guess when you take the
officers.
job, you know it's part of the job.
Exactly. You are just like any worker in any workshop.
Yes. This conference, this 13th core group, is focusing mostly on regional issues. And here Egypt is not only participating as Egypt, but also as the president of the African Union. How do you see this agenda different from the previous ones?
The previous one is the main one. This is the main conference that has been held in Munich.
Yes.
So this had been initiated in 1963.
Yes.
And one can say it is one of the most important conferences, you know, after the Second World War. And the purpose of this conference is to bring the leaders, you know, the ministers concerned, the experts, you know, to discuss all the issues, all things, you know, affect the security and stability throughout the world.
Yes.
You know, it is not just a discussion, but, you know, it is a chance for the leaders, for the ministers, for the experts to meet each other and to discuss the mutual interests, you know, and not only in security issues, but in many issues, you know, comprehensively. And to create and to strengthen the ties, you know, between the members of this conference, to exchange information, to support each other in specific area. So President Fattah al-Sisi, when he was in Munich in February, the lead, and he asked the head of the conference to had this co-conference in Egypt, you know, to bring some of the members of this, the main members, the foundation members, you know, who participate in the foundation of this conference in Munich, to Egypt, in cause the African members, because we are head of the African unity, and President Fattah al-Sisi want to take this chance to present our problems, the problems we are facing originally. You know, on the top of this, as you just mentioned, terrorism, illegal migrant, arms smuggling, and climate change and other issues. But
Yes.
on the top of this, I think was terrorism, because terrorism is very, very
It's a very
dangerous
critical issue.
phenomena, and it threatens many African countries, particularly the western part of Africa, which suffer very much from this phenomena, you know. And also to present our experiment at Egyptian, which was a very successful one. And everybody really respect and appreciate our experiment. And they praised what Egypt have done in this regard. And we have a lot of experiences, and we also try to transfer our experiences to the Africa, to the other world, you know, to the other countries. So it is a good chance for Egypt, first to confirm that Egypt is a peaceful country. We are living in a peaceful condition, and all the rumors around the instability in Egypt proved to be false, and also to show to the entire world that we are very active in dealing with the main issues that threaten security and stability throughout the world.
Do you expect conferences like this? Indeed, it sheds light on those issues, but those issues have been in the light, so to speak, for many years. What will conferences like this conference or the Munich conference bring forth? Because here we're talking about from the point of view of the average layman. Leaders are gathering together. We identify where the problem is. We don't need to keep saying terrorism is a major factor and a deterrent in any stability in this region or in the world, that it is destroying economies. I mean, we don't need to keep saying this. What we need to do is, and then what? When are we going to work collectively to address this phenomena? When is the world going to impose severe sanctions on countries that sponsor and provide a safe haven to those terrorist groups, for example? What are we expecting from those conferences? Because we cannot just keep getting together and highlighting the problem.
I understand your feeling, your worry. A lot of talks and nothing on the ground. But this is the way you conduct your policy, you know, to try as much as you can, you know, to be in the spot, to talk to the people outside, to the international organization, and to try as much as you can to collect such feeling with practical procedures to be taken, you know. To some extent, I'm not saying entirely, because there is no one definition for terrorism, for example. Some see it as aggressive action, some see it as terrorism action, some see it as a national dispute, something like this. So some countries use this phenomena, you know, in conducting their policy. You know, you understand what I mean?
They're justifying means to justify certain actions.
Exactly.
Definitely.
You know, as we see, you know, the killing of Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, everyone on the earth, you know, showed that the United States, if they want to eliminate him many years ago, they can do it. But, you know, he is just a means, you know, he's just...
a justification.
Exactly, exactly. So he is going very good with our policy in this area. So
is it like another Bin Laden?
Let him play, you know, his game, you know, and will maintain his presence and his move and his action to some extent. And when his role is finished, you know,
then we will eliminate him like Osama bin Laden.
Osama bin Laden,
Yes.
like many other leaders.
Yes.
You know, so everybody worry about this. So that's why we're quite sure that the war against terrorism would be a long war. You know, and
But people have changed. In other words, when we were talking about Osama bin Laden, those that were interested in politics or suffered that phase are from a different generation that is not necessarily that relied on social media, for example, as a means of exchange of information. Today, this tool has made the flow of information very fast and without any barriers.
Exactly.
The new generation is not relying on the regular media to receive its information. It has, at the touch of a button, access to so many different sources whereby they can really think and rethink and compare even the what's legitimate, what makes sense. Can you really lead people or mislead people, to be more precise, the way it was done in the past? Because we've been led to the situation in Iraq, the scenario of weapons of mass destruction, the Osama bin Laden situation, the 9/11 situation. I mean, endless scenarios whereby people were victims, really, to the lack of proper and accurate information. This is no longer the case. Can you mislead public opinion that way?
No,
even when you look at countries like our countries
say,
now.
you know, I rather instruct people through the media, through the sensible campaign launched through the media to inform people this is the nature of this war, and you should be worried about that. You know, this war is not like the ordinary one. You know, it's completely different. It is not dealing with your body to be killed, but it deals with your mind.
This is like the fourth and fifth generation. I was going to ask you about how is the war different from when you were a soldier? Because when you were a soldier, it was clear cut. You had a battlefield and you were out fighting.
Let me frankly say this is all the same, you know, even in my time, you know, we have a lot of blah, blah, you know.
Was also manipulating the mind?
But once we had this crisis, I mean the Israeli attack and the occupation of Sinai, we wake up. We wake up, we transfer from area to another area. You know, our feeling, our vision, our conscious, you know, our capabilities, you know, everything has been tremendously changes. So the people, when they are living in a normal way, you know, they don't, you know, give much care to anything but to enjoy themselves, to live their normal life, you know, to be, you know, like our youth, you know, in the street, you know. But once Egypt, you know, come to a real crisis, a real disaster, you know, so the nation woke up. The youth you are seeing and you are not happy with their action on the street and the transportation and everywhere, you know, they will see them differently.
Are people in this region awake? In other words, you have boiling points all over this region.
Yeah.
And we're one of the countries that has been really aggressively and fiercely fighting.
I am talking about Egypt.
No, I understand. I'm transferring to the issue to, let's look at the region. Are we in this region aware of the grave dangers that are facing us? Because you cannot have one or two countries really fighting the battle on behalf of everybody. I mean, we are very much immersed in everybody's backyard, but we also are having a fierce battle at home. I mean, it was quite a tough road to eliminate terrorist pockets here. Are we aware collectively of the grave danger that is facing us? You think people here are aware? And I'm not talking about Egypt. I'm talking.
The people in Egypt are very much aware. You know,
We've lived through a lot to be aware.
And you can see, you know, we are live in a normal life. You know, despite all this dangerous dancing around us and inside. You know, we are living a normal life. We are making a tremendous success in developing our country and making life, you know, more acceptable to the people. But the other countries, unfortunately, they fall in the trap. You know, they didn't realize what's behind this. Slogans, what's behind these rumors, what's behind this shouting on the streets, like what we are seeing in Lebanon. So they use, you know, they just go down to the streets and shouting and asking the government to be down and the president also to be down. And these things had become a weapon. You know, they use the emotion and the youth feelings, you know, to ignite the situation in the country. So the country to be defeated by the hands of its people, but not by weapon, aircraft, guns. You know. So it is very cheap victory.
Yes.
You know?
Is this a result of failed diplomacy, in your point of view, in certain issues?
No,
because
not I'm seeing. Because, you know, this is, you have to read the history. You know, the history telling you very clearly that this area is very attractive area to many empires, you know.
It always has been.
Exactly, you know. And even in the modern history, you know, we involved in 4 wars, you know, in 50 years, in 4 wars. And you can just imagine we just made the victory of 1973, and we start to rebuild our country. And
then we're
dragged we take no longer.
Then we're dragged into something else.
Exactly. So from time to time, the others used to make you busy with something, you know. If you are busy with yourself, you give much care to the entire or the inner, the inner needs. You know, in your country, I am in safe. Israel, for example, the United States, but they want Egypt not to be cracked down. They want Egypt to be like the iceberg, because we are a big country. We are a big country. You know, if this country cracked down, you know, the entire world would be badly affected. You know, they know that. But just be busy. Keep them busy, you know.
In our discussion, you mentioned 3 times the word Israel. And one of the issues that is always addressed whenever we talk about any regional conference, one of the pressing problems is the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. Some say that this is the backbone to our problems in this region. Without a resolving of that conflict, you will not have any form of peace or sustainable peace, and thus even maybe development in this region.
Right.
What do you say?
I will agree with you. You know, this issue will stay the main issue of the Arab, you know, And I think, from my point of view, there is no peace to be prevailed in this area unless we solve this problem. Unfortunately, the other side, the Israeli, they don't have a real need for peace. They are very strong. They always doing everything to be more stronger than the countries around them, just to make their hands the upper hand on the area. The main power that defy this vision is Egypt for the Israelis. So I think what we are seeing in the area had been planned and directed by the Israelis.
So when we see the other problems, is this a form of distraction? Because I'm one of the people, right at this table, we discussed numerously the Palestinian conflict. Now we discuss it every once in a while because we have so many other conflicts. Is it a distraction that you have us sort of immersed in so many boiling points that it's no longer just the Palestinian-Israeli conflict? You have a conflict in Palestine, you have a conflict in Libya, you have a conflict in Syria, now Lebanon, Sudan, Algeria. There's so much going on. It's no longer just the Palestinian question anymore, is it?
Look, the President Fattah al-Sisi mentioned once that the main issue that affect the security and stability in the region is the Israeli-Palestinian issue. If we can reach acceptable solution for both sides, all the tension in the region would be eased, because the fanatics people, the terrorist people, their feeling had been grown out of this problem.
Yes.
Nobody can argue about that. They have this hot feeling towards the West, towards the others, who support Israel, who stand behind Israel, who provide Israel with many things, to make Israel have the upper hand in the area. So their feeling, they turned them from the normal life to the tourist vision. So I think this issue will stay for a long time, and the Israelis, have their position, and they declare their position clearly. They need the land. They need the Palestinians who are living in camps to stay in camps, and the Arabs to afford them. And they need the Palestinian inside the Israel, to be Israelis, and the territory Israel joined from the Western Bank, to be legal. So they have to take the chance, because the other side, the Palestinian, in a very, very weak position.
Yes.
And unfortunately, many of the other Arab countries who provide to stand behind them, had abandoned them,
Yes. Yes.
and they didn't enjoy much support from the Arabs, And this is the dilemma in this regard. But from my point of view, this is the main issue of security and stability in the area. Israel, of course, enjoy the time because the Arab is fighting each other, and
Yes.
even the countries are involved in a civil war, So they enjoy with that. And I do believe that the Israelis, may stand behind some terrorism action, here on there, or transfer terrorists from here to there. The same role played by Turkey, and supported and financed by Qatar. You know, everything has been, you know, clear for everybody. So I think this is the main challenges that Egypt are facing, you know, the complicated, you know.
What's the solution, in your point of view?
No, the solution depends on Egypt to be strong, Egypt to be aware, Egypt to be ready to fight for its unity, for its...
We're fighting for
Yes,
our unity.
yes.
We're trying to get back on our feet, which
Yes.
is not easy because you are within this region. That's a boiling point. You're asking about investment, you're asking about economic development in an environment that is quite difficult.
Keep do that. You know, keep do that. Keep to maintain your security, to maintain your move, you know, to achieve a better life, you know, for the Egyptian, to maintain the unity of the people, you know. This will send a message to the people around you, you know, to follow the Egyptian experiment. And some leaders in the Arab countries now talking about Egypt, you know, and let us follow the Egyptian stereotype, you know. We need a leader like
Will you be
Sisi.
left alone?
Sisi, yes. So our voice, our experiment reach these people. And the people in Lebanon, you know, if you follow the news
Yes,
coming from Lebanon, asking for Sisi, you know, to be emerged in Lebanon and to draw a new policy for Lebanon. They don't want Hezbollah to be existed, no, because
No religious
it divided Lebanon.
Yes.
You know, and he announced, Hassan Nasrallah announced that he belonged to the Iran revolution, and Iran supply him with many things, from the rocket to the money, and that is not good for the people in Lebanon realize that, and they asking for somebody, you know, to come to the presidency and to come to the cabinet, you know, and to follow the Egyptian stereotype, you know.
Have certain countries like Turkey, for example, and Iran, do you think they are burning any peaceful bridge with this region through their actions?
Absolutely, absolutely. They want the region, you know, live in this chaos, and because of this chaos, they can achieve or to maintain their interests, you know, in the region. And that's very clear. Let me tell you something, you know, the Qatar, for example, was a very peaceful Arab country in the Gulf. You know, had been turned into...
Was.
It was, yes. Had been turned into an enemy, I would say that clearly, an enemy. It is another Israel in the Gulf.
Unfortunately.
Unfortunately, you know. It played a very dangerous role. That's written the Arab national security. And nobody can say that clearly. No, but everybody knows that very clearly.
But people in this region can see that very
Yes,
clearly.
yes. But unfortunately, they have the power, they have the money, you know, to move these things, you know, against our security and stability, you know, because we are the main target for some other power. But Qatar play the bank, you know.
It's financing, unfortunately.
The bank of this conspiracy against the region, to be divided, to be very weak, and to have Israel as the main power in the region. And that would facilitate the interests of the West, you know, and the United States in moving in the area freely and to maintain the supply of petroleum from the Gulf to the west and to the southeast. So it is a very, very complicated game, but I think the basic of success depends on Egypt. And everybody knows that. Everybody realizes that Egypt is the pivot, in
the country
in the country. And as Egypt stay strong and developed, and I think the other will follow the same road.
Path.
And the people, they will shout against against their regime to follow the Egyptian, and it will take some time. But I'm quite sure that all this blah blah in the region will be finally eliminated and will be defeated because it is the people will, to live. It is a matter of survive.
And history has shown that all the movements eventually fail.
Exactly, but always depends on Egypt.
And Egypt and its people.
Exactly.
So we have only a couple of minutes left, and I noticed in our discussion you never mentioned the role of international organizations like the Arab League and the United Nations and how they fit into any conflict resolution or human right violation or what have you, because all the issues that this conference and numerous conferences have addressed, they're all relating to the same thing. Conflicts and disrespect of international law and order.
Unfortunately, the people don't know much the nature of this organization. This organization is not a government. They don't have a decision. They don't have a military power, They always get the support from the country, the members, of this organization. When I was in the United Nations, the commander of the UN forces in Sarajevo, the people used to throw me with eggs and tomatoes, because I represent the United Nations, and they shout that you are doing nothing. The Serbs are killing us, are shooting, shelling the capital, Sarajevo, and you are doing nothing, just to report to the United Nations. And that's why, I told the Secretary General Boutros-Ghali, when he visited my commanding post in Sarajevo, I told him in Arabic, saying, "Sir, you have nothing to do here. Believe me, your work here, is not going well." And instead of using UN forces, soldiers coming from here and there, just hand over the mission to NATO, because it's a European mission, and this threatens the European country. And when they interfere, they use everything to find a solution to this problem. So the organization depends on the country's decision, the country's readiness to involve, to support, to supply, to finance.
And so long as countries are divided, then...
as you see, So, but you can't say, we don't need the United Nations, we don't need the Arab League, Maybe one day, things will be changes, and we will always need to this organization not to solve the major problem, but at least to maintain the unity, the appearance of the unity, of the members, the Arab or the international community. But this is the game of policy, after the Second World War. And unfortunately, the main power, the superpower, always have the high voice, their interference, you know, in the UN or the Arab League decision affect the decision, and that reflect the situation on the ground, you know, which you are feeling they are doing nothing, they are not very active. And I got the same feeling, but when I was a member of the United Nations, I realized that this is a nice building, you know, but the outcome, the outcome is not pleasing at all. Yeah.
Major General Hussein Abdel, unfortunately our time is up. Thank you very much for honoring us with your presence this evening on To The Point, and regardless, you still have a positive outlook, which comes with the experiences that you lived through. Thank you very much for your...
I enjoyed talking to you, really. Thank you for having me with you in this nice program.
And I'd like to thank you, the viewers. We'll see you same time next week. Until then, good night.